In this video, I will be teaching you how to make Mexican bread, also known as conchas. You will be needing salt, bread flour, all-purpose flour, eggs, milk, unsalted butter, cinnamon, active dry yeast, and sugar. We will begin by warming up our milk. The warm milk is used to warm up the yeast to a temperature that is favorable to fermentation. You can begin by adding 1/3 cup of milk into your pot. We want our milk to be a little bit warmer than body temperature, so you don't want it exactly touching the flame. You can stir a little for about a minute in order to receive the temperature you want. After completing the step, you can add your warm milk into a glass container, as well as a tablespoon of sugar and a whole package of active dry yeast. In order for the yeast to stay alive, it will need warm water or milk and sugar. If any of these components are missing, you will not get the final results you want to receive. After adding everything, you can begin by stirring for about a minute and leave it sitting for 10 minutes until you get a foamy look. Foamy look just like this one. After that, you can begin by pouring into a bigger glass bowl. A cup of all-purpose flour, 1.5 cups of flour, 3 eggs, and 1 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt. You will also want to add some butter, but when you do this, make sure to do it in sections so it's just easier for you to stir. And after that, you can just begin stirring everything together until you get a consistency or look of actual dough. Once your dough is ready, you can put a plastic wrap over it and then setting it in a warm place or putting something warm over it in order for the dough to be able to rise. A warm environment is important when letting the dough rise. This is because when introduced to the flour, the yeast particles begin to feed on it, creating and using enzymes that break apart particles from the flour into different types of sugars. Throughout fermentation, the yeast feeds on the types of sugars it prefers, leaving other sugars untouched and then producing small byproducts, such as ethanol and carbon dioxide, which you can kind of smell once the dough has already risen, and they kind of smell like alcohol a little bit. Both the fermentation and carbon dioxide are what causes the bread to rise. That is why, like in a warm environment, the process is able to speed up as the metabolism of the yeast is increased and like the organisms feel more comfortable eating and moving. Once you set your dough to rise for about an hour, you will want to begin making the topping. Once again, just add your butter pieces by pieces in order for it to just be easier to mix. You're also going to add 1/2 cup of sugar, a cup of all-purpose flour, and a tablespoon of cinnamon. Once you have mixed everything together, you want to just keep on mixing until you get an almost doughy look like the previous one we just made, and then just wrap it with the plastic wrap and then put it in the fridge. After your dough has risen and it has that fluffy look, you can begin forming your conchas. What I did was pour some flour into my counter in order for it to just not get sticky. I also did this with my hands just so that it would be easier to grab my dough. As you can see, I put it onto my counter and I almost did like a rectangular shape, like a long rectangular shape to get the form that I wanted. I then cut out 8 pieces, and with each little piece I just rounded it over, at least I tried to. You want it to be really round in order to get that concha consistency, or like look, not consistency, sorry, that look you want. once you have that round shape, you can just set them all on a pan. Then you can start making the top for your conchas. I took this out of the fridge, which is the second top, like I guess you could say doughy thing we made. And I just try to make a circular shape for the topping. I did this with a, I'm not sure how it's called in English, but it's called tortillera in Spanish. And basically what this does is just like squishes it together. So I took it off this, and then I just put it on top of my concha, and then with the knife I made that type of like shell look, I guess you could say, or at least I tried to. And I did this with every single one of them. After doing this, you can preheat your oven to 350. Just set it into the oven for 30 minutes and you will get your final results of your conchas.